what's it going to do? Is it a silver bullet to smashing the gangs?
Well, I actually don't think there is any silver bullet here when it comes to the issue of the small boat crossings. I think the processing of asylum claims fell by 75%, by 3/4 between the start of the year and the general election campaign. And that is the deterrent that we've been working on. We've made big progress. You know,
it's clearly not a deterrent because 20,000 people have come since the Labour government won the election. There is a silver bullet that will stop the boats. It's what we should have done under the previous government, but they didn't have the guts to do it. Legally, you've got to pick up and take back to France, which we're entitled to do under the United Nations.
Another powerful performance from the Reform Party on illegal immigration. This time it was Richard Tice's turn. As usual, the rest of the panel was against him. There was more nonsense about tackling the smuggling gangs from Labour. At Labour's ideological core, they support illegal immigrants. We need to remember that. Hence, they always talk about smashing the gangs, but you'll never hear them say, we need to stop these people coming and staying here. The Conservatives are a mixture of people who are too weak and scared to do anything about illegal immigration, and people who are as liberal as Labour and support illegal immigrants. Only Reform says the way to stop illegal immigration is to prevent the immigrants from landing on our shores in the first place and to stop incentivising them to come here. The Conservative MP on the panel says it's antagonistic to push the boats back when Tice suggested it. We need to stop wanting people to move here in the first place, she says. In other words, if we fix the world's problems, they won't want to come, and that's how you solve this crisis. It's laughable. Tice destroys the argument brilliantly. We are giving nearly €5.5 million to France to solve this problem, yet the numbers keep going up. We are more than within our rights to turn the boats back if this continues. It's pure weakness to suggest otherwise. The host aggressively argues with Tice that we cannot legally push the boats back. I must say France had a point when they said it's your own fault they come, because you give them everything when they get there. There's some truth in that. So firstly, we should have a deterrent. That goes against Labour's core beliefs, so that will never happen either. Next, we predictably got the we need safe and legal routes argument. There are a lot of people in Britain who would be fine if all the illegals just came legally. Thankfully, Reform are not in that group. They understand this will never end, and we've now taken in enough people. We can't just interminably take people in forever. Again, this debate proves it's time to give Reform their shot in government at dealing with this crisis. Take a watch.
I think we've treated this issue without the seriousness that it deserves, if I must say. One of the key ways to tackle the issue of the small boat crossings is to work with our partners in the EU and in neighbouring countries. It's great to see this meeting happening today and the fact that Germany is going to change its laws in order to make it easier for them to work with us to prosecute
It's quite
gangs.
technical, isn't it? Facilitating people smuggling isn't technically illegal currently in Germany if it is to a third country like the UK, which is outside the EU. So I say again, what's it going to do? Is it a silver bullet to smashing the gangs?
Well, I actually don't think there is any silver bullet here when it comes to the issue of the small boat crossings. I think pretending that there's one switch that we can flick and that will sort this overnight is a fool's errand. Rather, we have to work across a whole range of different areas. We've put £150 million into our Border Security Command, giving it the powers it needs for national security so we can go after these gangs.
Yes.
And working with our partners as well does deliver outcomes.
Karen,
yeah,
good news.
I absolutely welcome it. I mean, I was a minister in the Home Office. It's very clear that there isn't one single way to solve this problem. This is a multifaceted issue. There are gangs that are operating across the world, and the fact is that people want to come to the UK for various reasons, but we have to make sure that they don't have the ability to get here or to get to our borders in a way that wouldn't be acceptable elsewhere. So working with partners is absolutely clearly vital, but it's just one of a suite of measures. It cannot be the only thing.
Would you support the idea of bringing back the Rwanda scheme?
Well, I did vote for the Rwanda scheme, so you know, I think there has to be a deterrent as well. I think that you need to, if people have got to the Channel, they've got to the Channel for one reason and one reason only: they want to come to the United Kingdom. So, wanting to come to the United Kingdom, we have to find a deterrent to stop them. We have to break the business model of the smugglers. We have to make it that it's not worth their while to do it. There's no money to be made.
Dan?
Well, look, the processing of asylum claims fell by 75%, by 3/4 between the start of the year and the general election campaign. We've invested in that processing, which is a deterrent because we've now sent 9,000 people back on flights who didn't have the right to be here, and that is the deterrent that we've been working on. We've made big progress. You know, it used to be the case that the officers in the Home Office were just working on 2 cases a month. That's now gone up to 9 cases a month. That is the small.
It's clearly not a deterrent because 20,000 people have come since the Labour government won the election. And look, this is extraordinary. It's remarkable that in Germany it wasn't illegal to people smuggle to other nations outside the EU, but this will make no difference whatsoever. There is a silver bullet that will stop the boats. It's what we should have done under the previous government, but they didn't have the guts to do it. Legally, you've got to pick up and take back to France, which we're entitled to do under the United Nations 1982 Convention of the Law of the Sea. And what's interesting is I've been talking about this for over a year now. No lawyer, no government minister, no civil servant has said I'm wrong, and there's a reason for that, because I'm right.
Well,
and they're embarrassed.
Well, that's not true. I'll come back to that in a moment. But
Karen,
Karen, on your point, on Richard's point, I should say, that you didn't have the guts to do what Richard Tice and Reform UK is suggesting, and that's pushbacks.
I think pushbacks was something, you know, it's all very well Greece to Turkey, for example, who are quite clearly not close allies, but for the UK and France, close allies, to be pushing boats back is very antagonistic.
Let her finish.
And I think, Richard, you know, simple answers to this is not the solution. This is a very, very complicated situation. We need to stop people feeling the need to leave their home countries in the first place.
Karen,
we need to work with those countries that they're transiting through. We need to work with those countries that are facilitating through whatever mechanism the illegal boats. I was calling 18 months ago for the EU to set up a boat register, for example, so that those boats, we could stop them before they ever got on the Channel.
So pray tell me, why aren't the boats leaving and coming to us from Belgium? I'll tell you why, because the Belgian authorities pick up the boats themselves, which they're legally obliged to do under that same international treaty, and they take them back. But because France are failing in their international obligations, we've got to do the job for them. And the moment you do that, this whole thing stops. We know it works because it worked in Australia 11 years ago.
It was a very different situation, but sorry, go on, Karen. Hang on.
I fully support Belgium, and actually I've been working with Belgium MPs.
So Belgium can do it, the French can do it.
So that we can work closely with Belgium, because they're absolutely right that they are doing a fantastic job. But I do not think
so
the
you're
answer
accepting the French are doing a bad job?
I don't think the answer is to vilify the French in this situation. The answer
we've vilified the French for 300 years or so.
But the answer is to work with our allies, work with our friends, and try and stop this problem, which is a global problem.
Can we legally return people in the way you are suggesting without permission and consent from France?
Yes, and legally,
no,
France...
we can't.
We can, Joe.
I'm sorry.
Legally, Joe, France has a legal obligation...
Well, that's different.
Under that same international treaty...
France has not consented, and this is according to the House of Commons... Hang on. Let me finish the sentence. France has not consented to the return of vehicles to its waters. It's given a negative response to any proposals of what you call pushbacks. Without the consent of the country you'd be pushing the boats back to, the UK cannot legally adopt that policy.
That is not the correct interpretation of the Convention of Law of the Sea, 1982.
As you use the word interpretation, so there are different interpretations.
Yes. Well,
all right.
So we do it, and then the French can sue us. That's how it works, actually.
What's your solution, Polly?
Well, it doesn't mostly involve shouting. I think that Karen is right, that this is incredibly complex, and at the heart of it is around international cooperation, right? There are huge numbers of conflicts around the world, in particular geographical areas. We know that climate change is worsening insecurity. We know that, in fact, people wanting to travel from poor countries to rich countries, like we are privileged enough to live in, will continue to increase. And in fact, the only thing that can help us to manage that is international cooperation. We should remember, of course, that the vast majority of the cost of supporting refugees falls on equally poor countries, often in the regions, and that humanitarian aid that we give to support, whether it is the UN or sort of state-by-state support for refugees, is absolutely critical. It's also vital that we find, if you want to disrupt the business model of the people smugglers, safe routes for people to travel here. And that is something that governments in recent years have closed down when there were safe routes, for example, out of Afghanistan for Afghan interpreters. No longer possible. If you don't have alternative routes, and that probably requires major new international negotiations. The reality is what we have is a system that's not, it's absolutely not fit for purpose.
Right.
And the result of that is absolutely grotesque abuses of the law, which both lead to profiteering by criminal gangs that circulates in other parts of the illicit economy, and the exploitation of incredibly vulnerable people. Nobody wants to see that, but we can't imagine that there is a simple solution or, in fact, a way for to make the problem go away.
Do you support more safe routes opening?
Well, the thing about safe routes is actually we've got safe routes already.
Well, where are they?
750,000 people came into the year to June 23 legally under the visa system to the United Kingdom. We
Now,
already have
hang
safe
on.
routes.
We're not
Hang on.
talking about the net
No, we
migration.
have-
We're talking.
well,
No,
it's
let's
all
focus
part of
on
one.
safe routes, which we have had for Hong
So what
Kong,
happens-
for Ukraine.
correct. So
we
what
did have
happens-
one for Syria. I don't quite know
Right,
what state that is.
When someone
but
is rejected,
on that,
right, but the point, we can't accept everybody. I
no,
suspect we-
I'm not
right.
asking that.
So-
Should
so
there
then-
be more safe routes for
no,
people
no.
to apply for asylum?
We've already done more than our bit. Over half a million
fine.
people,
Right.
asylum seekers in the last decade or so have come to the UK.
But
We
that's
can't take everybody.
disproportionate.
No, hang on.
That's less
so if someone is
than almost
rejected,
every other
so
EU
Polly, if someone
country
is rejected
proportionately.
under a safe route and they then come here illegally, what's your response?
I absolutely think that we should have enforcement. But I'm just
Well, that's what we're trying to do
contesting,
now.
I'm
We're failing at
contesting
it.
your claim
Let us
that we have
speak.
done more than our bit. In fact, the cost of supporting refugees
about
in the UK
midway,
is
actually,
substantially less than many, many other countries,
Let-
and particular countries within region, including very poor countries, who absorb huge quantities of cost and burden.
And we've
Right.
a
Okay, let me
huge
just come down.
huge
Do you
quantity.
think there should this government open more safe routes for people to travel here and apply for asylum?
Look, I just think I understand why lots of people voted for reform.